The Boeing 2707 was supposed to be America's answer to Concorde. Designed to carry 277 passengers at Mach 2.7, it promised to revolutionize transatlantic travel. The swing-wing design looked futuristic and impressive on paper, but the technology was beyond what 1960s engineering could deliver. Development costs spiraled out of control, reaching billions. Environmental concerns about sonic booms grew louder. Congress finally killed funding in 1971, leaving only mock-ups and broken dreams. The Lockheed L-2000 offered a more conservative approach to supersonic flight. With a fixed delta wing and seating for 218 passengers, it seemed more achievable than Boeing's ambitious design. Lockheed promised lower development costs and earlier delivery dates. The aircraft looked sleek and purposeful in wind tunnel tests. But even this simpler design proved too expensive and technically challenging. When Boeing's 2707 was cancelled, the L-2000 died with it, another victim of supersonic ambitions. The McDonnell Douglas MD-12 was designed to crush the Boeing 747's dominance. This massive double-decker would have carried over 500 passengers across 2 full-length decks. The aircraft promised to make the 747 look small and outdated. Airlines showed initial interest in the giant's capacity, but the timing was terrible, coinciding with airline deregulation and route fragmentation. Passengers wanted point-to-point service, not massive hub-filling aircraft. The MD-12 was quietly shelved as market realities set in. The Boeing 747X represented the ultimate evolution of the jumbo jet. Stretching the upper deck to the tail, it would have seated over 650 passengers in high-density configuration. Boeing promised it would kill Airbus's A380 program before it started. The aircraft looked like a natural progression of 747 development. But airlines were moving towards smaller, more efficient aircraft. The economics never worked out, and Boeing shifted focus to the 787 Dreamliner instead. The 747X remained a paper airplane. The Airbus A380-900 would have been even larger than the standard A380. Stretching 84 meters long, it promised seating for over 1,000 passengers in all-economy configuration. Airbus believed hub airports needed maximum capacity aircraft. The stretch looked technically feasible using existing A380 technology. But even the standard A380 was struggling to find buyers. Airlines preferred smaller, more flexible aircraft for point-to-point routes. The A380-900 was cancelled before serious development began, a victim of changing market demands. The Convair Model 37 promised luxury air travel in the 1940s. This double-decker propeller airliner would have carried 204 passengers across 2 spacious decks. The lower deck featured sleeping berths, while the upper deck offered lounge seating. It looked like an airborne ocean liner, emphasizing comfort over speed. But jets were coming, making propeller airliners obsolete almost overnight. The Model 37's leisurely approach to air travel was already outdated by the time serious development began. It remained a beautiful anachronism. The Sud Aviation's Super Caravelle stretched the successful Caravelle design to its limits. Seating 140 passengers, it promised to compete with the Boeing 737 and Douglas DC-9. The rear-mounted engines and clean wing design looked modern and efficient. Sud Aviation believed they could capture significant market share from American manufacturers. But the aircraft was underpowered and suffered from poor economics. European airlines preferred American jets, and the Super Caravelle never found enough buyers to justify production. It died in the design phase. The Hawker Siddeley HS-141 was Britain's attempt at vertical takeoff passenger service. Using 16 lift engines, it could operate from small city airports without runways. The concept promised to revolutionize urban transportation, bringing airports to downtown areas. British engineers were confident the technology would work, but the complexity was staggering, and fuel consumption was astronomical. The 1970s oil crisis killed any hope of success. The HS-141 remained an ambitious dream of vertical flight that never left the drawing board. The Tupolev Tu-404 represented Soviet ambitions for massive passenger aircraft. This flying wing design would have carried 1,200 passengers inside the wing structure itself. 6 engines would have powered this aerial giant across intercontinental distances. The concept looked like science fiction brought to life. But the Soviet Union collapsed before serious development could begin. Western airlines showed no interest in such an enormous aircraft. The Tu-404 remained a fascinating glimpse of what might have been in a different world. The Lockheed Very Large Transport dwarfed even the Boeing 747. Designed to carry over 1,000 passengers, it required cooperation between Boeing, Lockheed, and Airbus to build. The aircraft promised to solve airport congestion through sheer passenger capacity. Airlines initially showed interest in the massive transport, but the economics were questionable and the technical challenges enormous. No single manufacturer wanted to risk the development costs alone. The Very Large Transport remained a paper study of aviation's theoretical limits. The Boeing Sonic Cruiser promised near supersonic speed without supersonic complexity. Flying at Mach 0.95, it would have reduced flight times by 15 to 20% while using conventional engines. The design looked futuristic, with swept wings and rear-mounted engines. Boeing believed passengers would pay premium fares for time savings, but airlines were more interested in fuel efficiency than speed. The 2001 recession killed demand for premium aircraft. Boeing redirected the technology into the 787 Dreamliner, prioritizing efficiency over speed. The Airbus A350-800 was the smallest member of the A350 family. Seating 270 passengers, it promised to compete directly with the Boeing 787-9. Airbus believed airlines needed a full range of efficient, wide-body options. The aircraft shared engines and systems with larger A350 variants, but airlines preferred the larger A350-900, which offered better economics per seat. Orders for the A350-800 never materialized in significant numbers. Airbus quietly cancelled the variant, focusing on more popular models instead. The Boeing 797 targeted the middle-of-the-market segment between narrow-body and wide-body aircraft. Seating 220 to 270 passengers, it promised to replace aging 757s and smaller 767s. Airlines desperately wanted a modern aircraft for this market segment. Boeing studied the concept for years, considering various configurations and technologies. But development costs were enormous, and the market window was closing. Boeing chose to focus on the 737 MAX instead. The 797 remained a missed opportunity in aviation history. The McDonnell Douglas MD-XX family promised to modernize the aging DC-10 and MD-11 designs. New engines and systems would have improved efficiency and reduced operating costs significantly. McDonnell Douglas needed a modern wide-body to compete with Boeing and Airbus. The aircraft looked technically feasible, using proven MD-11 technology. But the company lacked financial resources for major development programs. The merger with Boeing in 1997 killed any remaining MD-XX plans. It became another casualty of industry consolidation. The Fokker F-29 would have been a stretched version of the successful F-28 Fellowship. Seating up to 130 passengers, it promised to compete with the Boeing 737-200 and Douglas DC-930. Fokker believed they could capture market share with superior Dutch engineering. The aircraft looked like a natural evolution of existing Fokker designs, but development costs were beyond Fokker's limited resources. Airlines preferred proven American aircraft with global support networks. The F-29 died with Fokker's bankruptcy in 1996, ending Dutch commercial aviation dreams. The British Aerospace ATP-70 stretched the successful ATP turboprop to 70 seats. It promised to bridge the gap between turboprops and regional jets. British Aerospace believed the market needed efficient short-haul aircraft for thin routes. The design looked straightforward, using proven ATP technology and systems. But regional jets were becoming more popular and economical. Airlines preferred the prestige and passenger appeal of jets over turboprops. The ATP-70 was cancelled as the turboprop market collapsed in the 1990s. The Saab 2300 would have stretched the Saab 2000 turboprop to compete with regional jets. Seating 80 passengers, it promised turboprop economics with jet-like speed and comfort. Saab believed they could save the turboprop market with superior technology. The aircraft featured advanced systems and quiet operation. But passengers strongly preferred jets, regardless of economics or efficiency. Airlines couldn't sell turboprop flights to business travelers. Saab abandoned commercial aviation entirely, focusing on military aircraft instead. The Embraer EMB-170/190 family almost included a larger EMB-195X variant. Seating 130 passengers, it would have competed directly with the Airbus A319 and Boeing 737-600. Embraer believed they could expand beyond the regional jet market. The aircraft looked technically feasible using existing E-jet technology. But the development costs were enormous for a Brazilian manufacturer. Airlines preferred proven narrow-body aircraft from Boeing and Airbus. Embraer wisely focused on their successful regional jet niche instead. The Bombardier C-Series CS500 would have been the largest member of the C-Series family. Seating 160 passengers, it promised to compete with the Airbus A320 and Boeing 737-800. Bombardier believed they could challenge the narrow-body duopoly with superior technology. The aircraft would have shared engines and systems with smaller C-Series variants. But development costs were already bankrupting Bombardier, with just 2 C-Series models. The CS500 was cancelled before serious development began. Bombardier sold the entire C-Series program to Airbus. The Antonov AN-218 represented Ukrainian ambitions in commercial aviation. This twin-aisle aircraft would have seated 300 passengers, using proven AN-124 cargo plane technology. Antonov believed they could offer lower costs than Western manufacturers. The design looked technically feasible, but commercially questionable. Western airlines showed no interest in Ukrainian passenger aircraft. Certification would have been nearly impossible without Western partnerships. The AN-218 remained a paper airplane, another victim of geopolitical realities and market skepticism. The Comac C929 promised to challenge Boeing and Airbus in the wide-body market. This Chinese-Russian joint venture would seat 280 passengers with modern efficiency. Both countries wanted to break the Western duopoly in commercial aviation. The aircraft looked technically ambitious, but politically motivated. Western airlines remained skeptical of Chinese aircraft quality and support. Russian participation complicated Western certification and sales. Development has been repeatedly delayed, and the program's future remains uncertain despite government backing. The Mitsubishi SpaceJet M100 was Japan's attempt to enter the regional jet market. Seating 88 passengers, it promised superior fuel efficiency and passenger comfort. Mitsubishi believed Japanese engineering could compete with Embraer and Bombardier. The aircraft featured advanced materials and systems technology. But certification proved far more difficult and expensive than anticipated. Multiple delays destroyed airline confidence and order books. Mitsubishi finally cancelled the program in 2023, ending Japan's commercial aviation dreams after decades of development. The Sukhoi Superjet 130 would have stretched the successful SSJ-100 to compete with narrow-body aircraft. Seating 130 passengers, it promised Russian technology at competitive prices. Sukhoi believed they could expand beyond the regional market. The aircraft looked technically feasible using existing Superjet systems. But the SSJ-100 was already struggling with reliability and support issues. Western sanctions complicated international sales and certification. The Superjet 130 was quietly cancelled as geopolitical tensions made Western market access impossible. The Irkut MC-21-400 represents the largest variant of Russia's new narrow-body family. Seating 250 passengers, it would compete directly with the Airbus A321 and Boeing 737 MAX 10. Irkut believes they can capture domestic Russian market share from Western manufacturers. The aircraft uses advanced composite materials and modern systems. But Western sanctions have complicated engine supplies and certification. International sales remain highly unlikely given current geopolitical tensions. The MC-21-400's future depends entirely on Russian domestic demand. The Airbus A220-500 would stretch the successful A220 family to 160 seats. Airbus believes they can compete with the Boeing 737-800 using superior fuel efficiency. The aircraft would share engines and systems with existing A220 variants. Airlines have shown interest in a larger, more efficient narrow-body option. But development costs are enormous, and the market window may be closing. Airbus continues studying the concept while focusing on existing successful programs. The A220-500 remains a possibility rather than a commitment. The Boeing new mid-size airplane studied various configurations for the middle market. Seating 220 to 270 passengers, it would replace aging 757s and smaller 767s. Boeing spent years analyzing market requirements and technical solutions. Airlines desperately wanted a modern aircraft for this segment, but development costs exceeded $15 billion, and the business case remained questionable. Boeing chose to focus resources on the 737 MAX and 777X instead. The NMA became aviation's most studied aircraft that was never built. The Embraer E-Jet E3 family promised to revolutionize regional aviation with hybrid electric propulsion. These next-generation aircraft would dramatically reduce fuel consumption and emissions. Embraer believed environmental concerns would drive demand for cleaner aircraft. The technology looked promising in laboratory tests and demonstrator flights. But battery technology remains inadequate for commercial aviation requirements. Certification of hybrid systems presents enormous regulatory challenges. The E3 program was quietly shelved as technical realities overcame environmental ambitions. The Rolls-Royce Excel promised all-electric flight for short-haul routes. This technology demonstrator would prove electric propulsion for commercial aviation. Rolls-Royce believed they could lead the electric aviation revolution. The aircraft achieved impressive speed records in testing flights. But battery energy density remains far below aviation requirements. Electric aircraft are limited to very short flights with minimal payload. The Excel program ended as a successful demonstrator rather than a commercial product. The Wright Electric. Wright 1 promised all-electric airline service by 2030. Seating 186 passengers, it would eliminate emissions on short-haul routes entirely. Wright Electric believed battery technology would advance rapidly enough to make electric airliners feasible. Several airlines signed letters of intent for the revolutionary aircraft. But battery energy density improvements have been far slower than predicted. The Wright 1 remains a distant dream rather than a near-term reality. Electric aviation continues to face fundamental physics limitations. The Eviation Alice represents the current state of electric aviation ambitions. This small commuter aircraft seats just 9 passengers on short regional routes. Eviation believes they can prove electric aviation's commercial viability with small steps. The aircraft has completed test flights and attracted airline interest. But even this small aircraft struggles with limited range and payload restrictions. Electric aviation remains decades away from replacing conventional aircraft. The Alice may succeed in very specific niche markets, but revolution remains elusive.